Welcome to another edition of Confidently Speaking with DOC. I am your host, David Doc Shirey, author of the book, Rare Confidence, Strategies and Inspiration to Strengthen Your Belief that you can achieve anything. We got a lot going on in the world, and we're going to get to a lot of it tonight. And we're going to look at it tonight from a standpoint of mental health and what's the mentality of a lot of these issues that are going on. You know, we've got the year 2020. It's been an absolute disaster so far. And what has all of this meant to families and marriages and children? You know, we've got murderous cops, racist cops out there. We're going to talk about the mentality of those individuals. And we're going to talk about the mentality of some Trump supporters that believe anything he says, no matter how outrageous or how often it may be proven false. And on the flip side of that, we've got people who have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, and we're going to talk about those folks and what that mentality is. We're also going to talk about the mental makeup of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And we could probably talk for hours about that alone. There's a battlefield out there, and that's on social media. And I want to touch upon that as well. And there's this other concept of groupthink, and it's rearing its ugly head again right now. So we've got so much to talk about tonight with our guest, who we're going to bring on in a couple minutes. Before we do, though, I do have a couple housekeeping items that I would like to mention. Last episode, we had a technical snafu by yours truly where I was not able to see your comments and your questions. We got that all squared away. So please, please, please comment, ask questions. I want you to be a part of the show, and the show is better when you are a part of it. I've had some people ask me, you know, Doc, when I watch the show, sometimes I feel like, A, you're not looking at me or in the camera, or you're looking away. Well, understand that this is kind of a new technology, and I am not only the host of the show, I'm also the producer and the engineer. So I am looking at the computer screen when I bring on some graphics or show some video clips or even your comments. There are some other places that I'm looking. And even when we have the guest on, I'm not looking directly in the camera because I want to look at our guests. I do have a favor to ask you. You know, the audiences of the last two shows have been tremendous. Awesome. I love you all for watching. Whether you agree or disagree, you're all awesome. If you appreciate the show, I'm going to ask you to hit that share button. If you hit the share button right now, we will be able to reach a much wider audience. And in turn, that will allow me to attract some even national guests as we move forward. So if you could do me that big favor, that would be absolutely awesome. Now, tonight, we have somebody who is literally one of my favorite people in the world. I said that about our last guest. I meant it, and I mean it again tonight. Elizabeth Statlander, my friend Liz, she is a therapist extraordinaire. Liz specializes in relationship help for singles, couples, and families. She always offers a fresh, non-traditional, and really a progressive approach into dealing with a lot of issues. And she has dealt with a lot. And she also hosts her own show. Liz has a show called Liz Live, which is broadcast 3 times a week. And we're going to ask Liz how we can watch that show. I'm going to bring Liz in now. What's up, Liz?
Hi, Doc. I'm so happy to be here on your show. It's really exciting, and I just can't thank you enough for inviting me on. And I love being on the other side of the interview.
You're the best, Liz. You know, Liz, I tell people all the time that out of every human being I know, you're one of my favorite conversationalists. You know, you and I used to take long car rides together to go visit someone, and we'd be in the car together for like 8 hours a day, and we had some of the best conversations I can remember in my lifetime, and I appreciate that.
Oh, hey, I still remember that too.
Absolutely. We have a lot to get into tonight, but before we do, before we do, I want to go off topic here, and I have a question to ask you.
Okay.
I apologize in advance if I'm catching you off guard here, but can you tell me what's going on here?
I am French kissing. It looks like I'm French kissing my little Yorkie named Coors, the love of my life. One of the several loves of my life. That's what's going on.
Would that be the famous Corsy Warsy?
That is the famous Corsy Warsy, and somebody caught us in a moment, and that's true love right there.
That is true love. That's an awesome picture, Liz. Awesome picture. All right. Let's get right into it, Liz. 2020 has been the craziest year of my lifetime. So when you think about 2020, it kind of started with Australian wildfires, right? This picture right here is nuts. You see a kangaroo in the foreground with absolute fire and destruction in the background. And, when the year started and this happened a world away, many people, myself included, as somebody who's, thoughtful and caring, and I like to think I care about things bigger than me. And it was sad to see, but it didn't hit home. It didn't affect me directly, but it was sad. And then Kobe died. Kobe died in a helicopter crash, and that did affect me. It did impact me. I was actually at a basketball game when I found out, and Kobe is not just a basketball player; he's an American worldwide icon. And we all felt like we knew Kobe, right? And and when Kobe and his beautiful daughter Gianna and some other beautiful souls perished, that really hit us hard too. But again, I still woke up the next morning and put my pants on and went to work, and it still didn't affect my day-to-day life. And then the mother load hit.
Corona.
Right? The Crow-nizzle hit, and the United States of America absolutely shut it down. I mean, we got shut down for 3+ months. We shut it down to the point where I went out to dinner last night for my son's birthday. I hadn't been out to dinner in 3 months. And you talk about an impact that it had on us. Every single there's not one person in this country that the Crow-nizzle did not impact. And then 2 weeks ago, yesterday on Memorial Day, George Floyd was murdered by a racist cop. And since that happened, we had both peaceful protests, as you can see in the top image, and we also had riots and quite a bit of looting that you see there in the bottom image. So out of everything I just showed you, Liz, before we get really deep into this, I've got 3 basic questions for you on what's happened so far in 2020. Okay. And the first one is, what has all of this done to the collective psyche of America?
Well, I think that all of the things that you just brought up are connected. And I think that they have been all right on the back of each other. And it's been trauma after trauma after trauma. And I think that there's no surprise to me that we had looting and rioting in the streets after being, shut in for 3 months. So I think that what it's done is it's shocked the nation. It's changed the way we live. It's changed the way we feel about living. And I think for some of us, it's helped us grow in many ways, philosophically speaking, interpersonally speaking. And I think some of us, it has been quite depressing.
I agree with everything that you just said. Throughout the Crow-nizzle and the last 2 weeks of the BLM movement and the response to the murder of George Floyd, my God, the impact that it's had on every one of us and the range of emotions have really been incredible. And so my second question is, how do we talk to children? How are we honest with scared kids that maybe just want to know when they see these images and these things happening? How do we share with them enough information where they know what's going on, but yet we don't want to steal their innocence, but we want them to be able to ask the right questions?
That's a good question, and it's one that I'm getting almost every day. And it's a hard question to answer in a broad brush, because it depends on what stage of development we're talking about. So if we're talking about little children, who are toddlers versus, maybe young adolescents and teenagers, you have a very different range of understanding and processing information. So, my motto for everybody, no matter, how old your children may be, is to be open and don't lie about it, because you never want any distrust between parents and children. And eventually, everybody finds out the truth. So, but you want to sugarcoat it a little bit for the younger ones, because you don't want them to be afraid, and you don't want them to be scared to leave the house. You don't want them to be scared to interact socially. You don't want them to fear for their lives, just walking on a street, because we've seen this looting and the rioting and the fires. So I think, we have to find that medium, that balanced place where you're saying the truth, but without a lot of descriptives, kind of like just reporting the facts, and then let your children ask away. And nobody expects every parent to be a trained therapist. So I think that the more open the dialogue you keep, the better off you're going to be long-term. And you can always, come in and see me or consult. And, I'd be happy to address that particular situation that you're dealing with your kids.
Now, are there potential long-term impacts to kids that maybe are scared or are just confused as to what's happening?
I think we may see some of that. Yeah. I think it's going to more so shape the generation than, necessarily the individual per se. But I think that there will be some children, for example, maybe the kids that lived near where the looting and the rioting was, that will be scared and traumatized to leave the house, whose parents' businesses or homes were affected. COVID, COVID shut us all in. And so children were ripped away from their social outlet and from going to school. And so what I'm seeing a lot of in my practice is a lot of anxiety disorders developing. And I'm seeing a lot of agoraphobia developing, which is fear of leaving the house, basically. And these were people who had really not necessarily any propensity for anxiety before all this happened. But once they're, shut in and they're so frightened about everything that keeps happening over and over again, I am definitely seeing anxiety disorders developing. And I think that those can be, long-term.
And what about the nuclear family? We heard a lot about during the lockdown while we were all at home that once we got out of here, people were going to be running to divorce lawyers. What are you seeing in your practice? Has there been a lot of anxiety over we're just too physically close to one another?
Yes, I have seen a big surge in couples coming in for counseling versus individuals. And I was getting a lot of those new couples calling me during COVID and desperate to come in, no matter what was going on in the world, or desperate to do, our virtual sessions together, because not having any space from each other, not having our regular social outlets, people were getting irritated and irritable. And, every issue that couples had been dealing with going into COVID just got magnified by like 10. And so couples counseling is definitely up, no question about it. Divorces, of course, I do work very hard to make sure that my couples don't go that route, but sometimes it's inevitable. But I haven't seen the divorces go up per se, just couples counseling.
All right, I want to shift gears here now.
Yes.
And I want to talk about this murderous, racist cop. I'm not going to say his name, and I'm not going to show his knee.
Okay.
But I want you to take a look at his face, the casualness of his hand in his pocket. For 8 minutes and 40 seconds, this piece of human excrement kneeled on George Floyd's neck. We've seen that plenty. Again, I'm not going to show it here. The cop was expressionless. He was ignoring Mr. Floyd's plea for his life. Are these signs of a sociopath? Is he just a murderer? Is he a racist? Is he a combination of all three? What do you see when you look at this guy?
Well, when I look at him, and I've watched the video numerous times, I see the face of a sociopath. And just to explain to people what that means, clinically, basically it's somebody who knows they're doing something wrong. So they're not like psychotic where they're completely detached from reality per se. They know what they're doing. They know that what they're doing is wrong, but they do it anyway. And they have little to no empathy for other people. So if you don't have any feelings for somebody else at all, then yeah, you can kill people, you can rape people, you can molest people, you can do all kinds of horrible things to them.
So I know you're not a murderous, racist sociopath, but if you could maybe peek into his mind for 8 minutes and 40 seconds, what possibly is going through his mind at that time?
That's a great question. I guess without being inside of his head, I would say that clearly this man has been traumatized severely in his life. If I had to guess, starting in his childhood. And sometimes when children are abused and they're mistreated over and over again, and they go through a lot of trauma, and then he's in a field that is very it's rough and it's trauma, you sometimes lose touch with the human side of yourself and others. And he looks like an enraged man to me. I mean, he was in such rage. It almost like all the trauma and the pain and the horror that he's ever seen, felt, and otherwise, he took it out on this man. I mean, that's the best guess I can give you.
I want to get into Trump, Biden, their makeup, some other things surrounding them in a minute. But before we do, I just want to ask you about a person who is racist.
Okay.
What is the mental makeup of a racist person? We always hear that it's born out of fear. Do you feel that a racist person at the heart of it there's some fear there of something?
There could be, yeah. I mean, I would say more interpersonal insecurity. So in other words, if you're racist or anti-Semitic or, against any group of people for no real legitimate reason, it might make you feel a little empowered and better about yourself if you can position people to be, inferior to you. So that can be one thing going on for racists. I really believe that racism also is born in your home and in your family and in your neighborhood and your school, because it has to be reinforced somewhere. It's very unlikely that you would just come up with these ideas in your mind without reinforcement, other people agreeing, other people telling you, and yeah, that's right, and I feel the same way. And you won't find, you'd be hard pressed to find a really confident, intellectual person who is a healthy human being that would be racist. It would be difficult. They may be a little biased or maybe unfamiliar with, but they're not going to be just a hateful.
Right. And I think you'd probably agree that, a lot of times racism is generational, right? Like we all love our grandparents, but from time to time, that's where it comes from sometimes, right? I mean, They may be the most loving, caring people in the world, but deep down they may have these ideas and these thoughts that have been passed on through generations. So really, you have to respect and appreciate somebody that's able to kind of bust through that generational thing and develop, a mindset. And I think as a society, we have gotten better, because I think that the youth of today have a better handle on everybody should be treated equal than maybe generations ago.
Yes, I would agree with that. However, looking at what's going on today, in the past few weeks is very disheartening. And, when I think of, my first exposure to people of all walks of life, outside of my home, I think about Alderdice and where we went to high school and how we all got along and we were all friends. And then I look at what's happening today, and it's heartbreaking. It really is.
All right, let's talk about Trump and Biden.
My favorite guy, President Trump.
Trump versus Biden. I love it. These debates coming up are going to probably look just like you're seeing on the screen right there.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. Great entertainment.
They both have their issues. They both have their issues. And what I'd like to do over the next few minutes is I want to highlight just a couple examples of each of their issues. And then I want you, after we highlight a couple examples, I want you to take us inside their mindset. I want you to diagnose them, right?
Oh, I can't wait. Okay, let's do it. The
first example I'm going to show, everybody has seen this a million times, but it's Trump mocking a disabled reporter. Let's take a look.
Okay. This guy, I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
There's no words for that. Hold on. Let's hold off until I show you all three of these examples, okay? The second one, though, these are much more current. This is actually from late last night or first thing this morning. Ari Fleischer, who was George W. Bush's press secretary and a Republican, and he's responding to a Trump tweet that the old 75-year-old guy in Buffalo that was pushed to the ground by the police, rightly or wrongly, whatever your take on that was, that the guy was maybe a Antifa provocateur. Everybody who I've seen from Antifa looks like they're about 12 years old and lives in their parents'. But, Ari Fleischer said that the president's penchant for trafficking in conspiracy theories is, politically speaking, going to ruin him. It's reckless, and he just doesn't know when to stop. And that's a lot of what Trump does. But what I saw Trump do last Friday made me cringe, made me feel horrible for the family of George Floyd, made me feel horrible for us as Americans. When Trump was doing a press conference and he was hyping the stock market. Listen, I have money. I have a 401k. I like when the stock market goes up, but there's an appropriate time and a place for everything. And I want you to take a look at Donald Trump talking about George Floyd and the economy last Friday.
Hopefully George is looking down right now and saying there's a great thing that's happening for our country. There's a great day for him. It's a great day for everybody. This is a great day for everybody. This is a great, great day in terms of equality.
There's something wrong with that, man. To equate what was going on Friday with the economy and the jobs report and the stock market, to say it was a great day for George Floyd, I literally cringed when I saw that. So my question to you, Liz, is how do you diagnose Donald Trump?
Well, it's funny. I actually have a whole show on this. But so Donald Trump, and again, just to put a little disclosure here, we're not supposed to diagnose anyone that we haven't met. But that being said, Donald Trump is a classic narcissistic personality disorder, and he also has histrionic traits. So what that means is a lot, but so narcissists are generally motivated solely by their own needs and their own wants, and they want what they want, when they want it, the way that they want it. And anyone who's not willing to cater to that desire will be either attacked or dismissed. And so I think what you're seeing with some of his comments, the reporter, I think, wrote an article that didn't put him in a good light. So he attacked him, tried to discredit him. We call it character assassination, which narcissists are famous for. They will destroy you if you attack them.
Right.
They don't have the maturity to, gracefully respond to things. The tweet, the Twitter, that's just where he rambles. And, narcissists are very childlike and they want to get their way. So what Trump's way would be is everyone agreeing with him, everybody loving him, everybody wanting him to win. And so if there's anything that he sees out there that he can use to build his storyline, he's going to do it. So he wants Antifa to be held responsible for these riots and looting, and he wants to be the hero who exposed all this. And so he's going to start looking for things to support that. And that's pretty much what that one was about. And I think as far as the George Floyd situation and all the protesting and everything that's going on in the nation, this is a place where I feel that he's really failed the nation. I do think President Trump is generally a very hard worker, and I think that he truly wants to do well for the country. But unfortunately, because of his rambling, words and the way he talks in circles and doesn't really make sense, you never know what's going to come out of his mouth. And he uses these broad words like, it's a great, great day.
For many people.
Wonderful.
Hundreds of governors been calling me. There's only 50 states, but I've been talking to hundreds of governors.
Right. Everything's exaggerated. And that's the histrionic piece to him, which would, that's a whole nother thing that a lot of people are unfamiliar with, but everything is inflated, exaggerated. And he uses this very impressionistic speech to, make his points. And, a great day. I mean, I don't think this has been a very great day for anybody lately. Granted, okay, unemployment, whatever, that's great, but that's not the issue at hand. And he has completely ignored it.
All right, before we move on to Joe Biden, I'm going to ask everybody out there watching, submit questions for Liz. She doesn't bite, and she loves viewer questions. I've seen her own show. So, all right, let's move on to Joe Biden. Okay. I want to show a short compilation of some of his creepier moments. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down, so it was trained, and then watch the hair come back up again. You want to check my shape? Let's do push-ups together, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. I don't trust people who, in fact, to stay with me if it starts here and doesn't ever work its way down to the heart.
All right, thanks so much, sir. Thank you so much.
I'm going to put you in the general.
And then there was Joe's answer for the Cronizzle, what the cure was.
This is Sarah Haynes. In Hot Topics, we talked about Trump saying the government would reassess the recommended period for keeping businesses shut and people at home. Are you at all concerned, as Trump said, that we cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself?
We have to take care of the cure. That will make the problem worse no matter what.
We have to take care of the cure. That will make the problem worse no matter what. Now, I'm not going to show them, but we've also seen his comments where he said poor kids were just as bright as white kids. He said that if you don't know who you're voting for, then you ain't black. I think, Liz, there's a couple things going on here with Joe, and I want to get your take on it. Number one, he's always been a guy who's gaffe prone. So that may just be his personality, right? He's had those kind of issues for a long time. But it seems like now also up here, he seems to be losing it a little bit. And I also cringe sometimes when I watch him in interviews where he has trouble getting a complete thought out. So I wanted to get your thoughts on Joe's mental makeup.
Well, getting a complete thought out seems to be a challenge for both of our presidential candidates. but for very different reasons. So my take on Joe Biden is that when the last clip that you showed, when we're seeing a lot of rumblings and things where he's really not making sense, again, I've never met him, but in my view, from what I'm seeing on social media, news media, he seems like he's definitely starting to have the beginnings of dementia. And with dementia, you will not only forget your place in a sentence, not be able to pull the right words, get confused within your, cognitively confused, but you also, there's an element of dementia that can be very rude. Sometimes they come on, they could be the nicest person, but when dementia kicks in, there could be a problem. But I do think Joe definitely demonstrates a lot of histrionic traits. I think he's definitely histrionic personality disorder, which are largely people who need to be the center of attention at all times, think they're super close to everybody when other people don't see him that way. And so he's always affectionate with people. They lead with their sexuality. They lead with, touching all the time. And I also think some of his comments are more generation based. I think that, I believe he's 77 years old, I think. And, his generation is coming from that generation when you put up our grandparents. And I think that, he probably is, has some pretty racist ideas, although, or some beliefs, but he's certainly not being couched that way by his party and by his supporters. But I think it's kind of funny that he's like the great peacemaker here. But I mean, if you look at the forest through the trees, I mean, this guy's shown us who he is.
But I want to talk a little bit, Liz, about the mentality of the further left and the further right. Now, this is a graph that I show every chance I get because I literally made this myself from scratch from a timeline template, right? And I always talk about this on some of my Facebook posts because this is what I truly feel about what's going on in our country right now. So in the middle, between those red lines, I think we have a good chunk of Americans that lean a little left, lean a little right, and they can be swayed to vote across party lines when the right candidate presents itself. Then you have folks on the outside of those lines, right to the far left and to the far right. And those folks are the ones that really are driving a lot of this lack of civility. A lot of it has to do with the fact that our leaders have a lack of civility, right? But these folks also have a lack of civility. As a matter of fact, when I saw this meme here, this pretty much sums up the way we talk to each other in America right now, right? My social media kids right now, you got Carol Baskin telling Joe Exotic to put on his mask, and Joe Exotic's telling her to kiss my ass.
Oh my
right?
God.
So, I mean, that's really what's happening right now. I mean, Trump is so polarizing that his greatest supporters. Now, I'm not talking about everybody who voted for Trump. There's a block of folks out there that no matter what Trump says or does, no matter how outrageous it is, they believe it, right? Like this little game right here, Dad, there's 347 examples of Trump just making stuff up. And you can see my man is like, MAGA, 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 right? And then there's also the fact that, I don't know if you can see because some of the graphics are on top of this, but it basically says the world is flat. And don't worry, only 43% of Americans agree right now.
Oh, that's great.
What is the logic behind a Trump supporter that believes hook, line, and sinker everything that he spews?
Well, I mean, it's just that there is no logic. I mean, there's no logic in extremes. Okay. And so, whether you're in love with Trump and you just support him no matter what, or you hate him no matter what, or who you love, my belief is that when you live in an extreme world, you're not being logical. And, just imagine if I, as a therapist, lived in extremes, I would never be able to do my job. I would pick sides and I would get nowhere with my clients. And so I think there's a lot to be learned in these times from us therapists, especially the ones who work with couples, because we have to look at more than one view and more than one side. And I think that it's an emotional reaction. I think politics has become like a religion. So if you're raised to believe in Jesus, or you're raised to believe in Buddha, good luck in convincing that person that that's not true. That's what people believe. That's what they hold on to. It doesn't matter. Facts don't matter. Evidence doesn't matter. We have no facts or evidence when it comes to religion. And that's sort of where I see our politics. It's like the sensationalism of logic. There is none. It's just emotion, emotion, emotion.
Now, on the flip side of that are these folks that hate Trump so much that they've posted 17 memes about him by 7:30 in the morning, right? So here's one that shows a young lady and her boyfriend said, I just said the economy's doing better and unemployment's at a record low. And she's like, I can't believe I'm dating a Nazi. And actually, if you look closely behind the DOC logo, I believe she's wearing a vagina hat, but that's
my gosh. Okay. Right. That's crazy. Okay.
Right. And along those lines, I see these all day, every day. Here's one where they say, we must stop Orange Hitler. Now, I got to tell you, Liz, as Jews, this is offensive to me. I'm really not trying to make this program down that route. Trump is towards the end of his first term. If he was Hitler, it would have already begun, right? Because he may be out soon. It's offensive. In my neighborhood alone, we have people whose relatives were murdered by Hitler. And I know we can always find a Holocaust survivor that says, I agree. We can find anything to support our narrative. I find that offensive. But so these folks on the left that hate him so much and that spew this kind of stuff all day, I mean, is Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, is that a real thing? Do they need to take some and take two and call me in the morning?
Funny. I love this show, Doc. Is it a true thing? I don't know. It seems like it is. I think that, again, when you are only reacting in your emotions and you're not really looking at things, with logic and reading and thinking for yourself, and you just follow what people say, then, oh yeah, Trump's a Nazi. Trump's not a Nazi, okay? No. And if you know what Hitler was really about, it is offensive to compare Donald Trump to Hitler. And for everybody, for all of us, including him, that's taking it a bit far. But again, that's that strong emotional reaction that you're getting from this very polarized political atmosphere, and nobody's really talking sense. They're living in their emotions. Nonsense. They're reacting. Yeah, nonsense. They're living in their emotions. And, you can't even, it's like you're being forced that if you like Trump or you believe in conservative ideals, then you're a racist. And if you want to be not a racist, you have to like the Democrats. Right. And it's, so I think the mindset is, I think it's juvenile. To tell you the truth, I think it's kind of juvenile. I mean, you're allowed to pick who you want to like, but and I think people too don't sometimes understand the extent that the media plays a role in all of this. That the media is creating these stories about our different people, and if you just go, that's right, and you don't kind of think about it a little deeper, then you're going to just buy into that mob mentality.
I could not agree more, Liz. And, let's take this even a step further. We have people in this country that only look at one side. I've always been somebody, I respect everybody's opinion as long as they do it in a respectful way. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of disrespect, condescension, sarcasm, sanctimony, virtue signaling. I could go on and on. I am a fan of real talk. Listen, anything that you believe, as long as it's not racist, murderous, or hurting people, I can really try hard to understand your perspective. We have this idea going on in the country right now, especially with the major media, right? This Fox News versus CNN, and sure, you could probably throw MSNBC and a few others in there along with CNN. But one of the things that I don't understand, because I've always tried to get my news from a variety of sources, not because I necessarily enjoy one more than the other, but I want to know what the other people are thinking and saying so that I can talk about it intelligently and really understand. And to take that a step further, I have great friends on both sides of this political spectrum.
I do too.
And I really shouldn't be shocked, but I'm shocked almost on a daily basis when I'm talking to someone and I bring up a point that the other side has brought up, and it's the first time they've heard it. And I'm like, you got to get out of your freaking bubble. You're in this bubble. You're only watching the stuff that you want to hear. There is another opinion. And a lot of times I think so many people see that other logo, and without even listening to the content, they're going to attack that source. And they're going to attack that source immediately without even hearing the content of that logo. What say you, Liz?
I say that you're right. And, you and I have talked about this extensively. And it seems that what you're saying is becoming even more prevalent because of what's happening even the past couple of weeks. So again, if you have conservative values and you watch Fox, you might be a racist, or you are. And if you watch CNN, then you might be a crazy liberal. So, I mean, the name calling from both sides and everything that goes on does not help our situation. And I think if you look at it like a couple that's arguing, okay, and you're screaming at each other, the more you yell and scream, the worse the fight gets, right? So you're seeing a really bad marriage happening in our political world right now, a horrible marriage that needs a lot of therapy, a lot.
There's no doubt about this. All right, as we head into the home stretch, there's a couple other things I want to talk to you about. I would love it if we've got some great comments, but hey, if you want Liz to answer one of your questions, you've got a free live therapist right here, one of the best in the business. So let's use this time right. So there's this other concept I want to mention to you, Liz, and it's this concept of groupthink. Okay, and groupthink. I chose this image because this image is almost like, listen, I am going to align myself with a group, and I'm going to basically throw away my right to be an independent thinker, and I'm all in with the group. And I want to give you a couple examples of that.
Okay.
As you know, on my Facebook page, I've got people from all walks of life with every political leaning imaginable. And I think that's really, really, really important. Really important. However, from time to time, I will comment on other people's pages. And I know when I'm going to have a problem when I comment on somebody's page that the only people they're friends with, not the only, but for the most part, 98% of their friends are like-minded like them. And you know what happens when I do that? I'll show you exactly what happens. Whenever I comment on somebody's page, it's like, when you state your opinion on the internet, the mob is coming for you, right? Run for your freaking life, man, because they are coming. They're coming for you. And it's like, I have found myself where I would say to people, I don't know you, sir. I didn't talk to you in the manner you're talking to me. What gives you the right to talk to me with such condescension and sarcasm that if you saw me in a bar, you wouldn't have the guts to say to me? And you know what? Usually you get no answer. Bullies don't like it when you punch them in the mouth.
No, they don't.
Even on the internet, and they run the other way. Now, the other thing I saw, Liz, and this just happened over the weekend.
Okay.
So And I don't want to get into this whole idea of this new idea of defund the police, but I want to use this as an example.
Okay.
So over the weekend, defund the police was trending on Twitter.
Okay.
Defund, it turned into a little bit to dismantle, disband, and some of what I've heard and gathered from certain elements of a movement that's happening is, listen, our entire message has to be in unity. There can be no breaking of the ranks because unity in the message creates change. And there's truth in that. We've seen it already. So on Saturday afternoon, when defund the police was trending, there was a very liberal writer of a publication. I forget the gentleman's name. And he tweeted, now this is one of the most liberal guys you'll find on the internet. He tweeted, whoa, let's slow our roll for a little bit here. Not exactly sure what defund the police means. Let's think about the outcome and whatever. And it's a legitimate question, right? Let's just slow this down because whatever. 4 hours later, he was forced to apologize, and he was humiliated. He was called a racist. He was embarrassed. He tripped all over himself, apologizing the way the GROUPTHINK mob attacked him. Now, I've always felt like one of the beauties of living in America, and I've never lived anywhere else, so I don't know what it's like, but I feel like one of the beauties of living in America is we can think for ourselves, right? We have the ability we have the freedom to think for ourselves. I take a little bit from you, I take a little bit from you, and I come up with my own opinion. Do you see this?
I do. I have seen this, and it's very disturbing because, if your goal is you're trying to make social change, if that's your goal, why are you acting like the people that you say you claim were mistreated by? I mean, it's like, your racism, for example, is a way of groupthink. A bunch of people are saying these things, so I'm going to go ahead and agree with it because of where I live or because that's what my parents told me. And it can look just as ugly from political groups, no matter where they lie. And nobody should be chastised for making a simple comment like that. It wasn't hateful. It just didn't agree with that particular group's party line. So, I think so. What's happening is the mob mentality or the groupthink is, during a time where I think social media is, such a huge part of our culture, and it's there for everyone to see. So people don't want to be shamed. They're afraid to say what they feel because somebody might say something mean and make them look bad. And to be forced to apologize for that is ridiculous. I don't get that.
We have a question for you, Liz, from Brian Bennett.
Hi, Brian.
Liz, how do you see the future mindset of our country with such uninspiring leadership choices?
Brian, that is a good question. I think that if we don't have some good leadership, and soon, we're going to see more mob mentality type of thinking happening because we don't have anybody that we're inspired by. We don't have anybody that we all can look up to as a country, not as a particular political party. So it's forcing, in some ways, the polarization. So I think that the future isn't going to be fantastic if we don't get some really good leadership out there. It's actually kind of scary.
I think it's very, very, very scary. Kara Freeland Harmelin says, I feel like this group has become more like a cult.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, she may be right. I mean, when you're thinking about, cult-like mentality or cult thinking, it is somewhat of a brainwashing of people's thoughts or the way they think through, sort of threatening and abusive tactics. So if you take that type of mindset and a certain group of people who wants to, whatever, defund the police, for example, is going to threaten and attack anyone who disagrees, then, you might say, hey, that's kind of like, that's really going out there that, if you don't agree with this particular political party, then you're in trouble. I mean, that sounds more like, some of the atrocious leaders of our past more than anything.
The last question I have for you, Liz, is how do people talk through these issues with people that they love that are maybe just a little too passionate, where the other person may not show the same level of patience, respect, knowledge that maybe you believe that you have? I knock on wood, we're still 6 months away from Thanksgiving, but it's coming, right?
Coming.
We're going to have more of these issues, and that's going to be right after the election.
Well, it's funny because these issues are so saturating that they're coming into the therapy room. I mean, my clients are talking about it, and it is causing fights between couples, and it's causing fights between families. And so my advice is always to, if you have, that one guy or gal in the family that's just like over the top on their political views, do not engage with them, because it will destroy the night and it won't work out well for you. But if you're living with that person under the same roof, then I always suggest to, my couples sometimes, like, you stay away from it for a while. Don't go there with your partner for a while until we can kind of learn some patience skills, some listening skills. Because if you really want to educate people about how you think and how you feel, the more you force those ideas on other people, the more you harden their position. It's doing the opposite of what you like. So I think if you want to get along better, you don't want to harden people's positions, you have to be more peaceful in your approach. And that takes a lot of skill and a lot of self-control.
We have another question for you, Liz. How do we help our young children understand what is happening in our country?
Well, yeah, thanks, Felicia. And we did kind of touch on that in the beginning, but it's such a hard question to answer again, because, children are so many different developmental stages and have different abilities of understanding and processing information. But I can't stress enough to families to, don't lie to your kids. Don't sugarcoat it, but don't sensationalize it either. Try and just stick to the facts of what's, what they're seeing or what's happening, and have an open dialogue and let them ask you questions. And, this would be a great place and time to teach children how to think independently. Ask them, what their views are. I was, spending the day with a lovely young 12-year-old friend of mine the other day, and we had a lot of conversations about it, and I was surprised at how much she understood what was going on, and very interested in her compassion. And I think kids, they're going to see it, they're going to pick it up no matter how much you try to shelter it from them. So be that kind of family that talks about things and teaches children to think for themselves, so that we don't have a future of mom mentality people, because we don't want that.
We've got a couple other comments here before we wrap it up. Politics and religion are party poopers.
Yeah.
So good to hear there are rational, calm thinkers still in this world. Liz, that's kudos to you.
Thanks.
You're awesome. Liz, you are great. Good advice. Thank you.
Thank
Fantastic job, Liz.
Thanks,
hey, Liz,
Jeff.
Hang on one second here while I give a little plug for the show we're going to have on Thursday night.
Okay.
Thursday night, we have Father Terry O'Connor. You talk about a special guy. Father Terry O'Connor comes from an extremely diverse family, and I gotta believe that has helped shape his loving way that he deals with the world, and especially his congregation. He's the son of the former mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, and I cannot wait to talk to Father Terry. You know, I'm led to believe that priests, fathers, rabbis, imams, they are used to difficult questions. And I know Father Terry will take some. And I think at the end of the day, you know, I'm going to ask Father Terry what the meaning of life is. Maybe he can help me understand what that is. One more question for you, Liz, before we let you go.
Yeah.
Do you think this is from Dan Kuhn. Do you
Hi,
think
Dan.
the attitude of society becoming more tolerant of each other, or is society becoming less tolerant of one another?
You know, Dan, I wish I knew the answer to that question, because until a couple of weeks ago, I thought we were becoming more tolerant of each other, at least racially speaking and culturally speaking, maybe not politically, but I thought in other ways we were. And, you know, now I'm seeing some things, that have happened in the past couple of weeks, and I'm thinking maybe not. So I really don't know. I'm trying to figure that out, Dan. And, you know, I hope that, you know, all of us will take the time to, you know, be friends and talk with people who are of different cultures and, you know, different religions and races. And I think once you break that barrier and you start really caring about people of all different groups, then you realize, like, you know, people are just people. We're all kind of the same underneath it all.
I agree wholeheartedly, Liz. Liz, you are awesome.
Thanks.
You're one of my favorite people. Plug your show, Liz Live. It's awesome. How can our viewers find Liz Live online?
Yeah, so Liz Live is 3 days a week, and the daytime sometimes change, but I put up a schedule every Sunday night, and I have a standing Saturday at 11 a.m. And this week I'm doing tomorrow and Thursday at 11:30, and they are on my Facebook page at Actuation Counseling. All you have to do, or you can even put my name into Facebook, I do have a YouTube channel. You can find me that way, but my live shows are broadcast on Facebook. And if you miss them and you can't tune in, they're all up there after on the replay for everybody to watch. And a little different than, Doc does. I do more of like all my shows. I try to look at what's going on in the world, listen to what my clients are talking about, and then find, you know, the mental health or relationship aspects of those issues. And so I would love to have more people watch. That would be great. I would be honored.
That's awesome, Liz. You're the best. I believe that we have on the calendar within about 5 days from now, we will be drinking some wine together, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we will. We have Rob's big birthday party. And I just want to say, Doc, to you, this show was really a lot of fun. And the way that you've organized it, and it's just fantastic. So, you know, just congratulations to you. And I love having you on my show. So you're due for an appearance. And I loved being on your show. And thank you so much.
Hey, we're all in this together. Thank you, Liz.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.